Let's go, folks.
Hi, Brian. Long time no see.
I know, been a little bit.
Where's my screen? There it is.
We actually have enough people to start, amazingly.
I know. I just checked everybody off and I went, wait a minute.
And we have, who is David's iPhone? Is that one of our committee members, or I'm not sure who that is.
David Warner.
Ah,
Okay.
thank you, David.
David,
Brian.
Oh, and we've got Carl who just joined as well.
I know Stacy Rizzo is going to be late.
She's actually, she's here.
Oh, she's here. Wow.
Yep,
Okay.
she made it.
let me just check if anyone else whose name we don't recognize, if you're on the consigli team, could you let us know?
The two names I don't recognize are Emily Ercolano and Nancy Regan.
Emily, I know, is with Perkins Eastman, but I don't know Nancy.
Yes, Emily's on our team. I think she
Hello.
might have been here. Hi, Emily. But I don't know Nancy Regan either.
Which Nancy, I'll say it's fine that you're here. The public is welcome. We're just trying to understand who everybody is.
I was just gonna say the exact same thing. Welcome. It's a public meeting. Do we want to get started?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, the recording is on. Okay, welcome everyone to the Revere High School Building Committee meeting number 35. Today is Thursday, June 23rd, 2022, and the time is 5:35 p.m. Linda, if you could do the roll call, please.
I will do the roll call for Mike Picardi.
Here,
Mayor Arrigo is not absent. Stacy Bronson Rizzo.
She's giving a thumbs up.
Thumbs up. I'm hoping that means that she's not having microphone issues again, but I'm going to note her
Maybe,
as
but she's there.
she is here. Susan Gravellisi,
Here.
Dr. Kelly,
Here,
Carl Svensson,
Here.
John Perella, not here, absent. Jennifer Hayes,
Here.
Rich Biscay,
Here.
Don Sermella. I don't see him, so I'm going to note him as absent. Nick Rystrom,
Here.
Jerry Visconti,
Here.
and Patrick Keith.
here.
Oh, no, we got the robot voice. Excellent. Thank you, Patrick. I'm going to start off today with some quick housekeeping, couple of notes from our agenda. First off, the vote for approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting, which I'm going to share my screen right now so we can look at it. So this would be the meeting minutes from the last meeting, which was May 19th, believe it or not. I'm going to do a roll call for Mike Picardi,
Yes,
Stacy Bronson Rizzo. Yes,
thumbs up.
thumbs up. Susan Gravellisi,
Yes.
Dr. Kelly,
Yes,
Carl Svensson.
Yes.
Thank you. Jennifer Hayes,
Yes.
Rich Biscay,
I missed the meeting, so I'm voting present.
thank you. Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
Jerry Visconti,
Yes.
and Patrick Keith.
yes,
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is our housekeeping item number 3, which is voting to process invoices for Perkins Eastman and Left Field. And these are invoices that were attached to the meeting minutes that was sent out earlier. This is for the feasibility study phase, and it is, we'll start with Left Field's invoice number 19 in the amount of $15,000.
motion to approve.
Thank you, Mike.
Second.
Thank you. And I will do a roll call then for Mike Picardi.
Yes,
And my screen's flipping out on me. Stacy Bronson Rizzo,
thumbs up.
thumbs up. Excellent. Susan Gravellisi,
Yes.
Dr. Kelly,
Yes,
Carl Svensson,
Yes.
Jennifer Hayes, we lose Jennifer? I think we actually did. I don't see her. Hopefully she's not having too many computer issues. Rich Viscay,
Yes.
thank you. Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
Jerry Visconti,
Yes.
and Patrick Keefe.
Yes.
Thank you. So next up, we have May invoice for Perkins Eastman in the amount of $54,040.50. And again, this is for the month of May. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second,
And second. Gosh, you guys are on target today. And we'll do a roll call again for Mike Picardi,
Yes.
Stacy Rizzo. Hands up. Perfect. Thank you. Susan Gravellisi,
yes.
Dr. Kelly,
Yes.
Carl Svensson,
Yes.
Jennifer Hayes.
Yes.
Ah, there you are. Thank you. Rich Viscay,
Yes.
Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
Jerry Visconti,
Yes.
and Patrick Keefe.
Yes.
Thank you. We have oh, that was Jennifer. Thank you for your chat, Jennifer. Just noting that you had computer issues.
Sorry, I picked up my son from karate and there's traffic on Broadway, so I'm just trying to get back into my apartment. My apologies.
No worries. Drive safe, please.
Thank you.
All right, so I am going to kick this over to Brian for our CMR procurement update.
Sounds good. I think I'm gonna try to do this in PowerPoint. We might jump out. Is the screen sharing? Yep. Yep, okay.
Yep.
Sounds good. So we have a few updates tonight. The first one is pretty much a major milestone and in any school project, certainly one of this size. Wanted to give the building committee an update on what the site selection committee has been up to and where this is going to go moving forward. So just quickly going down this summary of the CM procurement process. RFQs, request for qualifications, were due back on April 20th. We received 6 applicants for the job: Consigli, Gilbane, Shawmut, Skanska, Suffolk, and Turner. The proposals were due, all of those companies with the exception of Shawmut were deemed qualified. Proposals were due from the 5 qualified firms May 23rd. We received them from all 5 that qualified for the project. We conducted interviews with the selection committee, Left Field, Perkins Eastman, and some other folks June 1st and 2nd in the council chambers at City Hall. And then we met to review details to date, talk about the interviews, and do the initial proposal and interview rankings on June 9th. That put us into opening the price proposals on June 10th, and then meeting on the 17th to go through the details of the numbers and complete the ranking of the price proposals. Long story short, that spit out a recommendation to move forward with Consigli. I can say Consigli put in a really good proposal. They did a really good interview. It's a really good team. I think we've noted it before that Lynn Stapleton from Left Field has done the Waltham High School project of similar size and complexity with this exact team. And we'll be moving forward, working with Mike Picardi in purchasing to secure a contract with Consigli in the coming weeks. Maybe it could take 3 weeks, 4 weeks even. We're going to ask that Consigli, as long as everything goes right, as expected with signing the contract, to attend the July, which I think is July 14th meeting, if I'm not mistaken, the next meeting of this committee, and do a little quick version of their interview presentation and introduce themselves. So in the meantime, we'll be, as I've noted, working with purchasing to land a contract. Ultimately, any new contract that this project brings on through the budget will need a record approval from this committee. MSBA wants that. Anytime we're awarding a new contract, moving items in the budget, et cetera, we will need a record approval. But once we get to the point where we have a finalized contract, I think we will put it on the agenda for this committee, get the contract out just so you can all see it. But I would remind you that this process is pretty much run with the subcommittee and purchasing. And it's sort of this is one of those decisions that's kind of a done deal by the time that gets to you folks. So we do need the committee to ultimately endorse this. The MSBA wants to see that in the meeting minutes. But I think we'll do that when we have a finalized contract that folks can, if they so choose, flip through the few hundred pages in there and ask us any questions that you might have.
Brian, one question I have, last time we met, I was reminded of this in the minutes. We were gonna look into the safety ratings. It was after there had been an accident in downtown Boston, and I'm just wondering if your team was able to look into that and what information you found out about Consigli in that regard.
From what we understand, Consigli had, well, basically including the insurance and bonding information they put in, they had one of the best overall safety ratings here. And that usually literally translates into their cost for insurance. Their cost for insurance on this proposal and in this contract were lower than all of their competition. You can see on this second to last row where we had the icons, I put them in the order that everyone got ranked in. And I think one of the things that worked against Suffolk here was their insurance and bonding numbers were significantly higher than everyone else's. And I think that is related to some incidents that have occurred more recently. But Consigli came out of that sort of double checking clean.
Great, thank you.
Any questions on this, or does anyone who is involved want to, feel free to throw in your 2 cents if you'd like. Otherwise, this is just sort of an update, great progress, great milestone to have a builder partner on the project here.
I guess I'll also just say thank you to the people who served on that subcommittee, because just looking at all these meetings, dates, and I know that the proposals were pretty thick. So thank you all for the time that you spent doing that work.
Agreed. No other questions. I'm going to move on. We have I have a few more boring updates, and then Dawn will have a significantly less boring update. So I wanted to just go back and double back on both where the schedule's at, and really quickly before we move on to the fun stuff, just bring everyone through the current feasibility study budget, which we're going to start doing on a monthly basis. But what's on the screen right now, and I might end up jumping out into a program I can zoom around in, but I made 1 or 2 updates to what went out earlier, just graphic stuff, making some of these lines easier to read. But we had that back at the end of June, when we were still looking at multiple options. So we've lost a little bit of time just due to, really wanting to get these decisions correct. But I will continue to point out that we still believe that construction and design development can happen in concert with the schedule. It's just can't go any further. And that's what I want to stress a little bit tonight. But I'm going to go to the next slide. The next slide moves this PSR schedule up to the top. So same schedule that you just saw up top, and now down the bottom is our current schedule. So I'm going to really quickly just jump into the Excel that this came from, because I think I can zoom in on it better to explain this. Let me get this as big as I can. So this is our current schedule, and I know there's a lot of graphics going on here, but as I just explained, if there's green lines above things, those green lines are showing shift, showing where something either went longer than we thought it would or began at a later date. So what I'm trying to really show here is the second thing that's putting stress on this budget is site access, which is this green line. We were targeting site access by June when we were doing the PSR and made the decision to go this direction. That was fueled off of starting the eminent domain late last year and getting towards a taking in the May sort of time frame, site access by June. Based on working with the legal team that the city has going on, that time frame has sort of become not realistic. There's a little more prep time that was needed. I think we also got a slightly later start with the eminent domain process than ultimately would have been perfect for the project. Nobody's fault. It's just the way it's worked out. So the eminent domain process is underway. Down here where the legal input appraisals and the land use study are happening, we're scheduling or targeting right now that would be ready in August, at some point in or by August, to issue an order of taking and secure access to the site before October. So at some point, there's a city council decision to follow through with eminent domain that's based on appraisals and an order of taking that are underway. And there's a 30-day period after that city council decision. That 30-day clock, once it expires, we, Left Field and Perkins Eastman, can get people on site to do the survey, geotech, geoenvironmental testing, and it queues us up into, excuse me, making the December date for MSBA submission. So schematic is going to go out a bit further into final decisions on the project, budget, scope, schedules by this committee and by the city council in December, leading to a submission to the MSBA. They don't have their 2003 board schedule yet, but that December before the holidays submission should lead to a late February or early March board vote to issue the project scope and budget agreement and affirm the numbers that we put in front of them and report back what the grant is going to be. So what I wanted to also just point out is because of just how this, we needed a little more time in PSR, and we need some more time to get schematic done based on needing to get on that site first. We are going to be requesting a 5-month extension of the feasibility study from the MSBA, probably in the coming month or so. We'll put together a letter. We will probably have that letter go through Dr. Kelly and Mayor Rigo's office and request that the feasibility study agreement, which if you do the math, they always attach like a 900-something day period to how long you have to get the feasibility study done. October 15th is when the feasibility study expires, so to speak. So we are going to be requesting pushing that out to March 15th, which is time to get to the board and have the board issue in writing the final numbers, final project funding agreement. And we think there's a good likelihood that the MSBA won't have any problem with this. We've already told them it's coming. But I did want the committee to understand that long story short, we're going 5 months beyond what the original feasibility study agreement sort of defined. And that's not entirely rare in these feasibility studies, especially for large schools, but it is something that needs MSBA approval. We're told by the MSBA that if 6 months is the dividing line of if we were asking for 6 months or more, that would need to go all the way to their board to agree with. Under 6 months, the executive director has the authority to accept such an extension. So I'm going to jump back into the PowerPoint and just pause to see if anyone has any questions before I sort of look at a summary of all that graphic info. And maybe,
I have two questions.
yep, go ahead.
The first is, can you tell us what would happen if the board says, no, you cannot have the 5-month extension? If the MSBA says, no, you cannot have the 5-month extension? And
That's
then my
a-
second question,
go
which
ahead.
might be related, is what if they say, yes, you can have the 5-month extension, but we're still held up longer than that?
So I'll start with the second question because I think the answer to that is probably a little more clear. If we ask for the extension, are granted the extension, and then can't make the extension, there's a high likelihood that MSBA would decline to continue participating in the project. And I don't want to make them seem like the boogeyman really here. I'm not going to put words in their mouth. They can make any decision they want. But typically what we've been told in our experience is if we get the extension, we have to live by it. If we cannot live by it, the project might be in jeopardy of jumping out of its spot in the MSBA pipeline. What happens if the MSBA says no, I think would be in kind of a little bit uncharted waters there. And in our experience, they don't have a problem with giving an extension as long as it's accompanied with reasons and a commitment that the project and city can live by that. So I think we'd be in a little bit uncharted waters if they were to deny the extension. And if they did that, we would have to regroup pretty quickly with this committee to decide what we could do and what the options were to roll this back to October. And I'm not sure that's possible at this point. So I think we are relying on the MSBA understanding that why we're asking for the 5 months and getting their blessing for it.
Great. So I guess I'm wondering, when we ask that permission of the MSBA for the 5 more months, what is the best way to do that? Should we have a meeting with them and have the mayor there? And
So far we haven't got input on that. We've been meeting maybe once a month, maybe a little bit less often than that, once every month and a half with the not the executive director or anybody, but the project manager and the project coordinator that's assigned to this job. They know it's coming. They think that just a letter and an email is the best way to do it, but I'm going to ask them again. We're going to try to meet before the 4th of July and just give them a quick update. They like to see the progress. I'll probably walk them through the presentation you folks are seeing tonight, just as an update. And I will ask that question literally if they'd prefer to schedule a meeting or if a letter is sufficient.
great, thank you.
I have can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Would we be better served asking for a longer extension, knowing that if we miss the 5-month deadline, we could put this project in jeopardy?
I think that is a decision, Rich, but I think the decision is 5 months, which we need, and 6 months, which I don't think we want to ask for more than 6 because that would immediately go to the board. That would mean we're not going to get an answer in a few months. So even asking for more than 6, I think is a no-go at this point. So I don't have a problem with asking for the 6 that they can give out without a board decision and telling them we're endeavoring to make it a 5, but if we lose a month somewhere, we have that month. So my advice would not be to ask for more than 6. I have no problem asking for the 6 and telling them up front, we're hoping it's 5. So I think the other detailed part of the answer is 1 month might not help. It's really these boards, MSBA submissions and boards happen quarterly. So often, or a little more often than quarterly, but if we can't get the December submission in, the next submission date would probably be end of March or end of February or early March. So 6 months probably could cover us if we have to go back an MSBA board meeting, but it would be pretty close. So I'm interested in other folks' opinion, but I have no problem asking for 6. I think you're just asking for something different right now if you're gonna ask for more than 6.
Yeah, I guess I was more leaning toward if we had to go to the board and ask for more than 6, so we could ensure that we don't run up against a deadline that may be very hard to change. So that's more of a question on whether we believe that 6 months is sufficient. And let's just say we asked for a year from the board and they said, no, you have the option to going back and asking for 6 months. Just want to make sure if we got one bite at this apple, we better make it good.
Yeah, Rich, I think what it's making me think is I'll probably put a meeting together with you and a handful of other folks, the mayor, Dr. Kelly, and maybe we should just really go through it in detail again before we make that request. Like I said, the MSBA knows some request is coming and they're okay with it. So maybe just finding the right group of people in the next week or so and really discussing it would be the right decision and determine what we're going to do at that point.
Thank you.
So I do think the one thing I'll go through this little chart on the top, but what I do want to stress is that it's going to take some more discussion with Consigli once we have them on board and Perkins Eastman and their team to really see if all the compression we've put on the front end of this design development schedule does allow this construction schedule to hold. And we think it does at this point, but there really isn't any other time. And what I would say is it's a definite that if we can't get the eminent domain done in approximately the amount of time we're talking about now, anything more than within a month, I think there's a almost definite chance that you're going to start seeing this new building construction bar slide to the right. I don't think there's going to be any more time to give up without having to say construction's either going to go 6 months or a year behind what we've been previewing here. Phase, first major phase, we went through PSR phase, Select Wonderland, and current SD schematic design phase. The PDP, the first phase, made it through on schedule. You can see that in PSR stretched out a little bit. We originally targeted in October. It ended up finishing in February. The schematic design phase that has to follow that would have been November to June. It's really March through December now at this point. Land acquisition, we started with a PSR target of June. We're on October. And you can see here those sort of plus or minus quarterly. Our original best target was the March submission to MSBA. September is what we've been looking at up through the last month or so, and December of this year is where it's at now. Those all lead to board approval 1 or 2 months later. So March would have been board approval in May. Board approval, I'm saying February, March again, because their calendar's not out. Could be at the end of February, could be at the beginning of March that we would move forward.
Brian, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yep.
You mentioned just before you went over that schedule, you said if eminent domain is pushed out by a month, if it's not done within a month, then it would slide the actual construction timeline. Did you mean a month from now, or did you mean a month from September?
Month from September. So like, I'm not going to say that if September became middle of September, that maybe we can't make it. If that moved, I would say more than a month. I just don't think the construction durations can hold up. If it moves a little bit, varies a little bit, but I did mean from the boots on the ground date, not now. So that is the assumption here, is that by September, we've got boots on the ground. If that's sometime in September, I think we can recover. If it's October or November or December or January, then we're just going to have to show a different schedule for having the drawings ready and being able to bid this job and getting to the ground with a shovel.
Okay. Linda, can I ask you to capture a note about that in the minutes? Only because I think it's going to be, I know the mayor wasn't able to make it tonight, and I know some other people in his office will need that information.
I'll make sure it's passed on to.
Yep,
Thanks.
will do. Thank you.
So just keep
Brian,
moving. Yeah,
Brian,
go ahead.
could
Go ahead, Joe.
you remind me the relationship between the ownership of the land by the city and MSBA? So when is it that they have to have that? When you're gonna ask for an extension and therefore they don't need it till the end of that extension?
Yeah, so they want to see it when we submit. So we basically need it. It has to be before we get on site. So getting that approved and then getting on site allows us to include it in the schematic design submission, which is just before the holidays. So it needs to be in the schematic design submission, which right now we're talking December for. That's sort of why we can't submit in September without the eminent domain process being worked out and without having the time to update the estimates based on geo-environmental issues and whatnot.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this is just a sort of blow up of how to get to the end and beyond of schematic design here. So this top sort of bar up here is kind of stuff the team's responsibility, what the team is working on. The bottom bar is eminent domain process, and in the middle here are approvals that need to happen at key points. So really what I wanted to get at here is that schematic design is underway. You're gonna periodically at these meetings tonight, you'll be seeing a lot of exterior design, building design updates. We'll continuing to work with the team on site updates. We're continuing to really plot out the permitting process and work this schedule in a live manner based on how it works out. You can see this by October line of getting access to the site triggers 3-4 weeks worth of site testing, and we're going to go into everything, pencils down mode is what I would call November and December. So I know the design team has a real good head start on the building. We'll be looking to have everything in shape to do another round of fresh new estimates on this project in this October into November timeframe. Those ultimately lead towards early December presentations to this committee, to the school committee, to city council to go over the final schedule, budget, and scope of the project. What I really wanted to sort of illustrate, though, and I know we've been talking about it, is to make this all happen, to get site access, the city and the city council are going to have to approve an order of taking before that. So one of the things we'll be doing with Consigli when we have their team on board is taking a look at the last estimate and doing some order of magnitude updates to it, either based on what's happened in the marketplace or things we've learned about the site. So the relationship here is that we won't have the project costs pinned down officially, the costs we will need to live by for the rest of the job until early December, but the taking's already got to be done at that point. So we want to go over the costs based on everything the team has learned and all the development of the building. It just won't be able to be a full-born estimate. It'll be sort of an update that we will accompany the actual approval of an order of taking, which we're looking to happen in August or by the end of August. And then 30-day period goes through, the pro tanto payment is issued in that time frame, and that sets up a deed in hand and site access by October is how we're looking at this. There's the 3-year financial appeal period follows that. And that really sets us up again, this getting control of the site, getting on site to test, doing a final permanent pass at project cost that we're going to have to live by through the end of this project, and then having the city approve the submission to MSBA. MSBA takes month to 2 months to issue the project scope and budget agreement to get comments back. All that info goes to the board. Hopefully last week of February, could end up being first week of March. And that's the point somewhere in here. I'm hoping they can beat it a little bit. Somewhere in here is a 120-day period for the city to formally secure funding for the project and basically start bonding the project out and deciding. Rich, I know that's going to be a heavy discussion with you, is what's the strategy to go out and borrow for this, in how many chunks, et cetera. So what the last takeaway I'd just like you all to have from this slide is what I was saying before about we've compressed the design development into bid documents, into construction schedule. We really, to hold this, are going to need to be working in this period where the MSBA is reviewing the documents, and then we go into the 120-day period to secure funding. This is something we're going to be talking about more with Left Field and Perkins Eastman and Consigli, that we really can't go into a hibernation until funding is secured. We're going to need to continue with design development, and it might make a phase for all of us consultants where we're continuing to push the job, but we might not be submitting invoices until we get the funding secured. So I think that's going to be a discussion that we keep forward with, but it's a point for you folks to understand that there's just no more give in this schedule. We have to be able to move into design development to be able to get lead towards a site prep package, lead towards a steel and foundation package, and hold the schedule. Any schedule related questions, comments?
Brian, we're gonna have to work out the bonding for any land taking and the amount, and just they take the summer off at the council level, so your September highlight there for pro tanto payment, depending on what it is, it still has to get a bond approval and everything else. So let's just we probably got to talk through that, probably in a smaller group.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, I want to go back and sort of go through all these dates with you and the eminent domain team, and make sure the mayor and Dr. Kelly can be there as well. So I will definitely put a meeting together, hopefully for some point next week, to hit that all in detail.
Okay, great.
I
Thanks.
think including Jerry Visconti as
Yep.
I want to say president. Is that the right
Council
thing?
president.
Council
Yep.
president. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Would be important.
Yeah, I've sort of talked a little generally about this with Jerry, but literally honing it into what meetings are we talking about, et cetera, is what we really need to do now. What are the dates, et cetera.
Do you need to know the dates for the summer session now, or?
It would help if you could just forward me any schedule information you have, Jerry. I can sort of work it into that follow-up conversation and even propose like, well, that's the meeting we could hit, or this is the meeting we could hit. And again, if this all varies by weeks, it's not the end of the world, but we just really, you're trying not to lose more than a month.
Yep, no problem. I'll send you over the summer schedule. I think it's I'll send it over to you.
Okay, perfect. Appreciate it. Any other schedule questions before a quick budget update? And then I promise we'll get into the design of the building. If not, so I wanted to just quickly put on the screen, we're going to start doing this at least monthly at these meetings. It's something that I know Joe and Dr. Kelly have requested. I've just been a little slow to remember to do it. The sort of thing I chuckle about when I look at the feasibility study budgets is to be honest, how simple they are. This budget a year, 2 years from now is probably going to be a 2 or 3 page document with a whole ton of info on it. For right now, really just to quickly go through this, you're seeing the total project budget right now is $2 million for the feasibility study. That's what we have to work with. If you jump over to this revised, this authorized changes column is something you can ignore. As we awarded the contract for Left Field and then awarded the contract for Perkins Eastman, money just sort of where it was assumed to go in the beginning shuffles around a little bit. But this revised total budget is maps into contracts, commitments. When you see total committed, that really means it maps into a contract. And overall, what you can see here is that Left Field, which is this first line, OPM, $418,000 contract. We are at next month going to be at a zero here. And that is kind of related. It's not kind of, it's directly related to what we talked about earlier as far as the extension of the schedule. We're going to continue supporting the job. I'm not going to change what I'm doing at all. If Jim was on this meeting, Jim Rogers, owner of Left Field, he would reiterate that. We have Perkins Eastman, through Dan Cawley's wisdom, saw the writing on the wall of how this was going to pan out through these meetings, and has set up their billing to be a little more in alignment with when he can really get the his sub-consultants and their sub-consultants kicked into gear. So they're in a good spot, 66% billed out for their services through SD. And I think the few things in there that Dan and I will follow up about is just awarding some of the work that we need to set up for after we have control of the land. So making sure some of those testing and permitting related items are covered, but we should be able to cover it within their contract. The balance to spend, as you can see, is 15,000. You'll see a $15,000 invoice for left field next month. We will not disappear after that. We'll be on board until we get this thing approved. The uncommitted column is basically the flexibility we have to get Consigli on board. And right now, I don't want to get into detail with their proposed costs, because I would prefer to have it all worked out into a signed contract and show you all at that point. But I think the schematic design phase, which when I say schematic, that means we got to build it against this 2 million. Everything after schematic is going to be a different budget that we even take this 2 million out of. If there's any savings here, we can push it into the project, but the $2 million feasibility budget is going to be a different number than the total project budget. We have 106,000 here to get them on board. I think we'll probably need around 70 of it to get what we need from the Consigli team between now and final project approval. And what I would just say for the record is when we're done, we have known costs for Consigli, which I'm hoping we have by next July's meeting. And we tidy up some of the permitting related and site related consultants. If there is money left in this budget, I'm probably going to be making a request of this committee to allocate some of that to left field as we get through this. If there isn't money, it's not going to change anything. We're still going to do it the same. But if there is some money left over here, I think at a future date, we might request that to cover the next 7 or so months that we won't be billing. And if we do get there, I know Jim will want to be on one of these meetings and just sort of explain where he's coming from. But I just wanted to throw it out there. If there's no money left, there's no money left. We'll work it the same.
We certainly appreciate that, Brian.
No problem. I do too, because I've had other jobs where business owners don't treat it that way, and Jim always does. So I give him credit. So that's it. If we don't have any other questions on budget or schedule or just general what's going on with the feasibility study, we can move into Dawn's update.
Thanks, Brian. I have a quick question. Did you make the motion and vote on Consigli, or did I miss?
Yeah, we
Are you
don't
doing it
need
at the
to
end?
tonight. We're gonna end up
Oh,
having
okay.
this, we're gonna end up having this committee approve it when we've got a finalized contract.
Got it.
And just do
I
it all
see.
for once,
I'm-
because
All
the
right.
MSBA will
My
want
apologies
both.
then.
Yep. So I think we can do it all at once as opposed to doing it twice. Ultimately, I can't
Perfect.
hand them a contract without them saying, did the building committee vote on that? Even though the selection subcommittee made the decision. So
Got it.
But no, good
Okay, I
reminder.
just saw it
Thank
on
you.
the agenda and I was like, I didn't, I never heard the vote. So, all right, all good. So just wanted to make sure. Are you going to keep sharing for me, Brian?
I can click if you
That'd
want me
be
to.
awesome.
Otherwise, yeah, okay, go for it.
No, there's no, there's nothing that's interactive. So easy enough to do. Good evening, everyone. As Brian mentioned, I have some exciting news. We've had a couple of exterior working group meetings. I just want to remind everyone who's on that group, just for your reference, Susan Grabilisi, Lena Marie Rockwood, Richie Galucci, Mike Picardi, Don Chiramella, and then Dan and I have been going from Perkins Eastman and Brian from left field. I got everyone, right? I don't think I missed anyone. So great group, very interactive. We've heard feedback from pretty much everyone on the group. So it's been awesome. Do you want to go? So the meetings were June 13th and then June 21st. So just a few days ago. So all of this is fairly new information. The first meeting, June 13th, I'm going to kind of walk you through what was high level, what was presented, and then what came out of that. And then, yep, you can go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, I thought I lost control of my screen.
No, that's
we go.
okay.
Okay.
And then what we heard just a couple days ago, which we're well underway working towards the next iteration, but wanted to just show you what we've shown the exterior working group. So on the 13th, we sort of showed visuals for 3 different options. We have sort of a more traditional earth tone scenario, which had 2 red bricks with a ground face CMU base. we had option 2, which took inspiration from Rumney Marsh and had more natural wood tones in the wood phenolic and some solid panels, as well as a darker ground face CMU. And then lastly, an ocean concept, which had multiple bricks, like a dark gray and a light gray brick, almost a whitish looking, like a lighter gray brick, and then an iron spot brick base and some multiple window and metal colors. So if you want to go forward, Brian, I'll walk you through real quick some of the visuals of all of this. So option 1, again, traditional, more traditional with red brick. You can see the library. These are like multiple slides put into one, just high level, but just recognizing that this is an earth tone concept and drawing inspiration from some of the historic buildings in Revere that aren't, it was pointed out they aren't nearby, but are very much integral to the history of Revere. So you can see some of the visuals. All of these show the main entrance on the lower under the palette. And then the upper right is the courtyard. And I just want to point out all of the landscape isn't necessarily rendered as it's designed. It's rendered just as green. So you can say, oh, that's landscape, not building. So I just want to point that out because we talked a little bit about that just the other day. Once the site is fully designed and decisions have been made, we'll get that rendered and visualized like we are with the building here. So just imagine that that will be so much more than just a green, green courtyard. And then the lower right is the south side of the building up against the VFW Parkway. These are the 2 main 4-story academic wings. So if you want to go forward, Brian, to the next one, please. This is the second option. That was the Marsh concept, drawing inspiration from the colors and textures of Rumney Marsh. So more of a wood phenolic. I know it looks similar to brick, but it's actually, if you zoom in, the main academic wings here all are that very durable phenolic panel, which I believe we've shown you previously. You can see in the upper middle of the palette, thanks, Brian, that's the wood, and then there's some natural tone as well. And then the base here is a ground face CMU. And also, I just want to point out, I don't remember if this was shown to you guys previously, to break up sort of the verticalness and the length of the building, we're you know, there's a large scale of this building. We did some accent window surrounds, and in this particular case, it's a neutral because the main part of the building is that wood tone phenolic. In some of the others on the brick, you might see some wood tone sort of framing around the window, just to give it a little bit of depth, give it a little, you know, a break from the monotony, if you want to call it that, of all the classroom windows. So that's very much a work in progress, and we're studying that a little bit more, but just wanted to point it out. And then lastly, option 3, Brian, if you wouldn't mind going forward. This is, as you already know, the floor plan has sort of a wave to it that breaks kind of the long linearness of it. And from that, we drew inspiration from the beach and the nearby, obviously, historic Revere Beach that you are so popular for, and drawing from some of the color tones, the textures, and just the general palette of the beach here. So both the ocean and the beach. So some blues as well. And you can see the main entrance again at the lower left, the courtyard at the upper right, and then the classroom bar. Would you go forward one more for me, Brian, please? Great. So the discussion led to a general consensus that everyone thought that the ocean concept was the front runner of the 3. There were definitely some, you know, I appreciate and like the Marsh concept and the wood grains. I like the traditional brick. We got a little bit of that, but in the end, and by the way, anyone on the working group meeting, feel free to chime in if I'm misinterpreting something or saying something or you want to build on it or correct me, feel free. But the general consensus was move forward with the ocean concept. We like where this is headed. There are a few things about the design we would love to see you explore. So if you'd go forward to the next one, Brian. Perfect, thank you. This is just a flattened elevation. Some of the changes we talked about, and this is still from the 13th, raising the base height of that iron, and in this case, iron spot brick, but it would obviously apply to any of them. Felt like the visualization of the classroom bar, the base felt too low. This was 2'8". It was at the window sill height. So what we talked about was bringing it up either to the window head height or to the second floor height. So you'll see that change in a moment. Change number 2 on this particular option, making the fascia darker, felt like it wanted to have a cap and a base and feel really solid and durable. So we explored that. And then lastly, breaking some of the vertical, the horizontal, the linear, how long it is with some of these. And in these cases, these are the science bays, but this also happens at the stairwells. There's kind of this vertical glass element in the facade that we brought that light, the accent brick down to break the base and also create some vertical separation. So you'll see that in just a moment. So that came out of meeting number 1. Meeting number 2 happened 2 days ago, so Tuesday. And would you go forward to that, please, Brian? Oh, yeah, perfect. So option 3 still front runner. I actually got samples of things, showed in my screen, like physical, they were with me. The bricks, some of the metal, a couple different windows surround options, different metal variations, and also even a ground face CMU versus the iron spot base. So with that, we had rendered ahead of the meeting those same images. So if you'd go forward, Brian. Wait a minute. We lost them all. Do you have, I think this was the draft, Brian, no? Hold on, I'm gonna share mine. There's some visuals.
Sorry, yep, I might be in the file.
No, that's fine. You're in the one that you edited. Do you have the
Okay.
PDF I emailed you at the start of the meeting?
Yep, I do. Hold on one
If
sec.
yeah, I could also share if you need me to.
All right, I got it. It's here.
Okay. Yeah, in order to email it to you, Brian, I had to take some of the graphics off because it was like 35 meg. So the one that I was sending you didn't have quite all the visuals. So if you wouldn't mind, just scroll down to where we were after the palette, I believe. Perfect. So you went too far. That's okay. No worries. Here we are. Front entrance. So same light gray, dark gray. But if you look on the left, there's those vertical, the ones closer to the entry are actually, I believe they're science labs, those small windows in between of the prep, science prep. And then the one kind of on screen left is a stairwell. Yep, so that accent brick comes down, breaks the higher base. If you see that dark base, we brought it up to the window head height, and then you can also see the upper band of the fascia. On the south side, the classroom view, you'll see it more substantially. It has an overhang because it's on the south side. So this is what that looks like. Would you go forward for me, Brian, please? Thank you. The courtyard, you can see some of the window. Oh, the other thing I didn't mention, the blue, that was kind of on the surrounds of the inside jamb of those window frames, if you want to call them that. And those are wood phenolic, and on the inside would be blue phenolic. Just kind of a nice accent touch. It hits on the blue of the ocean. It also happens to be a school color, but just kind of adds a little bit of interest to the elevation. So here you can definitely see the accent gray comes down on screen right at that stairwell. We've got the higher brick and the darker fascia. And you can start to see the heart of the school change, rendering here as well. That's what we're looking at in the middle. And then the gym, this is a 2-story ROTC health classroom. Yep, perfect. Thanks, Brian. And then lastly, of the images that were shown previously that we updated, this is the classroom image that you can really start to see where some of these changes visually impact what the building will look like. You want to go one more, Brian. On Tuesday, I showed an additional view of this south image. It's kind of stepped away back. The one that I just showed is kind of to the screen right. This starts to show that centerpiece where the bus drop Above it is the 9th grade academy cafeteria, and then the media center space is above. So that's that centerpiece that you're looking at, with flanked by the 2 academic wings. So this would be the view from VFW Parkway after you've come out of the Rotary and are traveling south. So you can start to get a sense of what it's so long. It's hard to put on one screen because it's so long, but you'll see in a moment I did some bird's eyes and you can get a sense of how long it is. But this is what you would see from the street. Okay, Brian, if you want to go forward. I think I compiled the bird's eyes. On the lower middle is the one I was just showing you, with the kind of central pieces where the bus drop and then the 2 academic wings. On the upper left, it's the main entry. You can see the front curved wing of the music wing. We've talked about that before. It's kind of a 1+ story because of the volume that we'll need acoustically in those music and theater classrooms. The auditorium's right behind it, the gym's right behind that. And you can see those a little bit better in the right-hand upper bird's eye. You can see the gym in the foreground, the auditorium's just to the left of it, and then the kind of swing of the back of that music wing. And then at the top is the kind of the 2 curving academic wings. And then lastly, we showed a few different options based on those palettes. So this is like option 1, option 2, option 3, like of the similar palettes within this option 3. Sorry, I'm confusing you, but basically a light brick option, a wood phenolic option, and then an all iron spot option, which was proposed as the base. And you can see those in both. So the upper 2 are the light gray, and you can kind of see it behind the main entry. It kind of pokes out from to the right side of that upper left image. You can see it from behind on the upper right, and then the middle is wood phenolic, and then the iron spot is the darker, and that's the 2 bottom images. So, and I wasn't asking for opinions. I was just sort of throwing out studies that we were doing, because that's a huge volume that ultimately will have an opening on that front face that you're looking at on the right-hand images. That will be the 2-sided stage with the outdoor. Yep, perfect. Thanks, Brian. The outdoor performing area. So that will have like some sort of opening with a proscenium. So that will affect what this will look like. But this is the start of how we might study what that volume, that large solid volume, will want to look like. So again, this was just 2 days ago. So if you want to go to the last slide that I have, Brian, I wanted to share some of what we heard on Tuesday. So in general, everyone was still in agreement that option 3, the beach and wave concept, made sense. There was some feedback that we might want to consider that some of the rigidity of the brick, both the iron spot and the two grays, was too rigid for what you might find at the beach, which is a little more natural, more random, less rigid. So the feedback was maybe consider more random patterning or natural patterning that would have a feeling of what you might find at the beach versus like just stacked brick. That it was overall a little too uniform and formal in the brick stacking. And then also we might want to consider a more aged natural driftwood looking veneer instead of just like a warm wood that you see in that window surround. And then potentially studying a more natural stone base. So something that's more like what you might see if you imagine like a jetty or a stone, an ocean wall that is not a stacked dark brick, but rather a varied material with some irregularity to it, but still a material that's durable and makes sense for the base. The last piece that we heard, and this is all, I'm showing it on the classroom bar, but it's, it's across the board. The asking about the amount of glazing, and could we include a little more blue in that, glass is naturally blue. It sometimes will look dark, like a gray when it's daylight out, but to put a little bit more blue in the form of potentially glazing in the palette. So with that, we let everyone know that we try to stay under 25% of glazing, and that's overall for the whole building. So you see the auditorium, that's almost zero glazing, right? And here's the classroom bar where we have the punched openings to bring in all the natural light to the learning spaces. So we're still going to hold to that 25%, but obviously look at opportunities to that does to the fenestration, the idea that that would kind of be a extension of these window surrounds. And also it's hard to see in that photo because it's so small, but there was some wood phenolic wrapping the window bays at the two sides of the gymnasium. And that there was an appreciation for that. And, it allows the auditorium adjacent to those window openings to be more like a jewel, like a special space, right? Did I miss anything, working group members? I tried to capture what the conversation was about, tried to capture some of what we're moving forward with. I've already reached out to about other brick sizes, brick colors, natural stone for the base. A couple different vendors, reps are sending me samples. I'm looking at different woods on the phenolic. I have a different material similar to phenolic that Dan and I were talking about today that we're using on another school project that we have down on the Cape. So lots of moving parts and lots of work happening, but hopeful that all of the final product of all this is a much better building and something that Revere will be very proud of.
Dawn, Dan, can you just expand a little bit on why 25% glazing is your target usually and how you guys design and practice?
Yeah, you want me to take that, Dan, or you? Typically, we try to stay under 30, always. Our goal is 25. We've been as low as, I want to say 18. But basically, it's an energy efficiency. So if you imagine, you're sitting in front of a cold, snowy day at your house, you're sitting in front of the window, you're going to feel, a different temperature air than you would if you were behind or adjacent to a solid wall. So there's a level of efficiency in keeping the glazing amount down, and it's an average. So it's, like I said, we're taking really solid spaces, auditorium, the ends of gyms, often the ends of our classrooms, which are just to the right, our classroom bars, don't have east-west facing glazing for similar reasons. But in general, we take an average, and we're about to run that calculation, see where we're at with all of this facade fenestration, and we try to stay under 25%. And we run energy models based on those assumptions.
Yeah, basically glass is a terrible insulator.
Yep.
It's beautiful, but it's just expensive too.
So we
And
try to the wall is really great. It's super insulated, but the glass is awful. So we try to keep the glass down to a quarter or less. And that's what we're going to base the initial energy modeling on. It's 25%.
Yep. We're already putting those statistics. Yep. And also it's the inverse. On a really hot day, you're gonna, feel the heat coming through the window versus an insulated wall. So it goes both ways, but to Dan's point, it's glass is not a great, even triple pane glass.
Yep.
Pane is better.
Yep.
But sometimes the cost trade-off is it comes down to a comfort trade-off and potentially a cost trade-off with mechanical systems in the building, which we'll have a further discussion later on down the line about triple glazing versus single versus double pane.
So I'm wondering, with such a large building and such a long building, one thing that is striking me as we get into this a little bit is how the uniformity can make it seem a little institutionalized. And I'm wondering if there's something that we can do with that. And I'm obviously not a designer, or I'd have a very different job. And I know that there are aesthetic things that are helpful visually when there is some uniformity. But I guess I'm just getting a feeling when I look at these renderings, and I know that they're draft also, but of like a big rectangular, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, no, and thank you for saying that, because that was brought up too, and I forgot to include it here. But we talked about a little more randomness, for lack of a better word, or varying things like window mullions or shape of windows or height of windows. So that very much will be part of our study as well. So I'm gonna write that down now
Yeah.
so I don't lose track of it. But that was also brought up, and I appreciate you bringing it up. And we will work towards a solution that is not institutionalized. Is that the word you used?
I think it is.
Okay.
I didn't want to say prison-like.
Dawn, if I could.
Sure.
It's hilarious that you said institutionalized, because that's what Donnie Chiaramella said the other day at the meeting, like 6 times.
Yeah.
But now, looking at this, like re-showing this picture that's on the screen right now, definitely looks institutionalized. But I think when you come out to that street view and you see that middle part with all the glass, I think that's when it was like
It was another
yeah,
two
like
slides.
being on
Yep,
the
there you
Venus
go.
Movie Parkway, that one down the bottom there.
Mhm.
That's where it kind of makes it look like more of a building, like a good looking building instead of an institutional.
Hmm.
That's just my concept.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a different view and a different angle. So it's such a large building. It's really hard to shoot at grade perspectives of it and get a
Yeah.
sense of the whole thing. So thank you for humoring me as I attempt to do that. And maybe we can find, better views that will capture more of it but without the site around it built out, it's really hard to capture, the essence of what the whole thing will look like. But
Right.
I think I know what you guys mean, and I have some ideas about how to
Yeah.
study that and make it look a little less so.
And I think to Michael's point, like this view here, you see the differentiation, like that middle section is so different than the others.
Mhm.
It really does make you think like, oh, this is a unique kind of different place. I think we need to feel that way on the other views as well.
Okay, great.
Hey, Dawn, is the wing in the background, the further wing away, that actually has a lot more going on too.
It
than the
does.
wing in the
So if
foreground.
you, hold on, I'm gonna, do I have it open? I can pull it open real quick.
I
The
think
floor
that's starting to
plan.
go closer to what everyone's
Yeah,
looking for.
no, so those wings, they curve opposite each other and they're mirrored. So on the left, you're looking at the side that has the science wing, the
Mhm.
science, yep, though. So that science prep are those small windows that are in between the vertical tall windows. And those tall windows are intended to be like on the south side, they could be small greenhouse spaces, growing spaces for all the different science, but for biology specifically. So we think about like having these little bay windows in science labs that they're more than just the punched openings, but they become places that science projects can evolve. So that's what you're looking at there is sort of it's not quite a back-to-back, there's two science, and there's like a classroom space in between. So, so you'll see that same elevation on the main entrance view,
Yeah.
because it's the backside of the wing that we're looking at on the screen right here. Does that make sense? So they're flipped.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that variation in with those longer
Happens
vertical
here as well.
elements, is that more pleasing than the punched opening
Mhm.
side of it on the right here?
I think that's a
Breaks up,
question.
it breaks
for-
up that rigidity.
If it does, maybe I can study alternate versions of, it wouldn't be that exact thing because that's not where the science rooms are. And it's a little bit of a different language of how the classrooms lay out. But I could certainly study a companion version of something that would break the facade up, particularly this one on the right. And then it would be the backside of the one on the left.
Great.
Let me study it. If Diane, if you have additional thoughts or think that doing something to break up just the punched openings. It's funny because I had some other things and Bob and I were in disagreement about it. So I wish he was here. He's on vacation, by the way. I hope he's enjoying it.
Oh, no,
I
he's
think he
here.
actually logged on. He's
He's here.
here.
Out of here. Oh my
He
God,
is.
Bob Bell. Get back to vacation, Bob. So anyway,
Working.
Bob and I will collectively put our ideas together because that's how we work. We're a team, and get our team to model some variations that we can bring back. We have another exterior working group meeting, just so you know, the next iteration on the 7th. So that's before our next SBC meeting, so we can report back from that and, you know,
Great.
show some different studies and iterations to that group and then report back to everyone. Does that sound like a plan?
That sounds great. Thanks.
That was gonna be our plan, you know, but I'll include these different elevation studies as well. So in addition to some of the material suggestions that were made. So that's all I have, unless anyone has any other feedback more than what Diane has shared and then the exterior working group has shared. We have a lot of challenges here, and one is scale, and that will come into play with materials as well as, you know, exterior fenestration and facade work. So we'll end in the right place. It'll just be a process for us to get there because the scale of this building is quite large. And we don't want it, just so you know, we don't want it to look like the housing that has been developed, you know, nearby. We don't want it to be in conflict either, but these aren't housing units. These aren't apartments and condos. So it wants to look and feel like a school, but look and feel like a modern school. So.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'll just add in, just to not always be putting out bummer news with schedules and everything, that the silver lining to needing a little more time to get land acquisition and site access is, you know, I think Dawn and her team have comparatively more time than they would to continue working with this stuff. And I appreciate them doing that. So we're going to work towards a, you know, we were talking about October, November is pencils down. So we do have a good amount of time to keep refining this.
Yeah, and lots of time. I appreciate the additional time. I will say, I said it to the working group the other day. We hope to have by the end of the summer, at least a materials palette and things that can be put forward into SD for pricing, and have a lot of the exterior facade and fenestration at least studied to a point where we're really happy with it and it can be cost out. So there will definitely still be changes in design development and as we detail it, but the overall look and feel of the building should come together in the next few months, which is exciting.
Great. Maybe we could soften some of the rectangles.
We could do that.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, questions for Dawn and her team? Not, I think that's our agenda for tonight.
Maybe just see if there's any public comment before we end.
Sure.
I think we've lost everyone that was from the public earlier.
Any public comment? Take that as a no.
I have one bit of new business to share. And I just want to share with the team, I think most of you know that Dr. Perella is moving on from his position at Revere High School. So I'll be doing a new building committee list to MSBA next week. And I'll ask Bob Bell, I don't know if we ever actually scheduled it, but we were trying to schedule time with the new principal, Mr. Bowen, to go over the whole educational plan and do all of that work, but he will be replacing Dr. Perella on this committee. So I'll let him know about the July 14th meeting, and assuming he doesn't have a conflict, I'm sure he'll be here. Bob, did we ever schedule that meeting with him?
I was gonna say, Diane, I can't remember either. I just went back to my inbox to see if I actually searched my calendar and couldn't find it. We
I
definitely
don't
had
think we did.
yeah, we had a bunch
Okay.
of emails with suggested times, so we'll get that
Okay.
scheduled, Diane. We'll get it.
Great.
scheduled. But we call it the Educational Leadership Team, the ELT, and Bob and I and our team will we look forward to meeting everyone and bringing them up to speed. So.
Thank you very much, Dan, for mentioning that. Anything else from the team? And if not, we will be looking for a vote to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second,
Second, thank you. And we will do one last and final roll call for Mike Picardi
yes.
and Stacy Rizzo.
I think we lost Stacy.
I think we lost her, yep. Susan Gravellisi had to leave at 6:26, so she is now absent. Dr. Kelly,
Yes.
Carl Svensson,
Yes.
Jennifer Hayes,
Yes.
Rich Viscay,
Yes.
and Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
Jerry Visconti,
Yes.
and Patrick Keefe.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening, and we will see you in July.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Good night, all.